Let's talk about the top story tonight, which is Europe on the brink. There's a lot of moving pieces today as it relates to the war in Ukraine, as it relates to Germany, Vladimir Putin, the nuclear power plant, and a leaked document from the RAND Corporation. All of this is creating like one big pumpkin spice latte of craziness. So first of all, we're watching Germany head towards collapse in real time on two different fronts, which we will get into. We have a leaked RAND Corporation report, which is stunning, points to total economic collapse for Germany and the EU if Russian gas doesn't flow. We also have a major update on the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, which has been under constant shelling by Ukrainian and NATO forces for the past few weeks. First, let's get to the power plant, where we have reports this afternoon that the largest buildup of Ukrainian forces to date is threatening the power plant, according to multiple reports. Now, accumulation of Ukrainian forces and equipment near the line of contact in Zaporizhzhia region, South Ukraine, is colossal right now. There's never been such a massive move of forces in this direction towards the power plant. What is the goal? What is the goal? To destroy the power plant? By all accounts, that's been what they've been trying to do by shelling it.
It's very confusing.
Dropping suicide drone strikes on the top of it, shelling it, using HIMARS weapons from America, the United States, to attack it. What is the goal? At the end of the day, it's the largest power plant in Europe. You're literally cutting off a massive amount of energy flow to Europe as a result of this. I can't wrap my head around it.
Yeah, the strategy's lost on me.
So this is incredibly worrying. Why isn't Russia attacking these forces that are actually looking to harm the power plant? This is a good question, right? If they know they're coming here, why is Russia sitting back on this? Scott Ritter, the former UN weapons inspector, had these thoughts late this afternoon. He said, this is the sort of report that gives me concern. If it's true, then why in God's isn't Russia stacking aircraft overhead and destroying this buildup? I can guarantee you if the United States detected a buildup like this, it would cease to exist. And that's true. The United States would rain missiles down on a location like this. Yeah. So,
and it would be justifiable, right? Because we don't need a nuclear fallout.
Right.
Nobody needs that. That's in nobody's interest.
So, of course, all of this is energy related. Again, we're talking about Gazprom. We're talking about the nuclear power plant. On September 2nd, Gazprom announced that the Nord Stream 1 pipeline that delivers the majority of Russian natural gas to Europe would remain shut, totally closed. Russia simply has had enough of EU countries funneling weapons and training into Ukraine. They've been training forces in England, in Germany, in Denmark, all over the place, in France. And so Germany, though, this over the past 24 hours may have finally crossed the red line, according to Moscow's ambassador in Berlin, said this on Monday, that Germany has crossed a red line with Russia by sending arms to Ukraine. The German ambassador has a message from Vladimir Putin and said this. This is Ambassador Sergei Nechayev. The very fact that the Ukrainian regime is being supplied with German-made lethal weapons, which are used not only against Russian military service members, but also the civilian population of Donbass, crosses the red line. Considering the moral and historic responsibility that Germany has before our people for the Nazi crimes, they have crossed the Rubicon.
Okay. Those are some scary words.
Well, he has a point. Something fundamental in Germany might be changing, right? A new Germany that's militarizing, right? They've, of course, funneled billions of dollars into building up their military. And so what is actually happening in Germany? Is this like a caged bear at this point? Well, today we have stunning leaked documents from the RAND Corporation, and it comes from a whistleblower who leaked these documents to John Mark Dugan. He was kind enough to publish the full damning report from the RAND Corporation. The leaked documents are only 4 pages long. So it's unclear how much of this report actually goes further than these 4 pages. Many people have wondered if Europe's self-inflicted economic crisis was all planned. Was it all done on purpose? Was it all part of a plan from the RAND Corporation, carried out by the CIA, carried out by the Biden administration? So let me just give credit here. This is John Mark Dugan. He got access to these documents from a whistleblower and then published them on his YouTube channel and linked through his Telegram as well. And I'll just show you what the report looks like from And again, I'll link it up in the description if you guys want to go read it for yourselves. I encourage you all to read it. Again, 4 pages, and it starts with this page. I just want to show you why this front page of this executive summary is so important. Look at who this was distributed to. White House, right? White House, Department of State, CIA, NSA, and the Democratic National Committee. Okay?
Okay.
Not the RNC? What the hell?
No, yeah, they just must have skipped those guys. They just sent it to the DNC and the Biden administration. By the way, the date on this is January 25th. This is a confidential research report. It's been published now multiple times in multiple different places. But it goes through on the executive summary page, weakening Germany, strengthening the United States. And I kind of want to pull up what Red Pill News did a good job of really highlighting all of this. So let's just go through this because it's really striking. So the executive summary begins with the title, Weakening Germany, Strengthening the U.S., with the ultimate goal being the infusion of cash into the banking system by European and NATO-aligned nations, hopefully being able to avoid significant military and political costs in the process. Now, as Red Pill describes it, and as Rand sees it, the greatest obstacle to achieving the goal is the ever-growing independence of Germany. That problem seems to have been addressed with the war in Ukraine and the sanction on Russia, resulting in the killing of the Nord Stream pipeline and the cutoff of natural gas from Russia into Germany. That alone will undoubtedly lead to Germany requiring assistance from other European nations if they hope to save their citizens when the heat turns off. Control of Germany and their governmental decision-making process seems to be chief concern to the Rand Corporation, they say, which predicts that the destabilization of the United States would lead to a quickening of the independence of Germany and the inevitable end of U.S. influence. So what this document is saying, in essence, and there's multiple layers to this, what's the biggest threat to the United States is a stronger Europe, a stronger independent Germany, which sits in the middle of all of this. And the way to crush Europe, to destabilize Europe, is in effect to destabilize Germany.
To start there. And it further says that this need is precipitated by Brexit. Because when the UK withdrew from EU structures, it says we, who is we, right, the Western powers, have lost a meaningful opportunity to influence the negotiation of cross-governmental decisions. So since the UK is our, best bud that will do our bidding in the West, right? If the UK withdraws from Europe, we've lost our plant there, basically. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we've lost our insider.
Right.
So, I mean, what's amazing is this paragraph stands out to me. There's so many paragraphs. Again, this is only 4 pages. I wish I knew how many additional pages there were, and maybe we will see more of this. But right now we only have these 4 pages. But this paragraph stands out. The current German economic model is based on 2 pillars, the Rand piece writes. There are unlimited access to cheap Russian energy resources and to cheap French electric power. Thanks to the operation of nuclear power plants, the importance of the first factor is considerably higher, meaning cheap Russian gas is the entire German economy. Without it, you put it into a friggin' free fall. Mm-hmm. Halting Russian supplies will create a systemic crisis that would be devastating for the German economy and indirectly for the entire European Union. So Rand, they predicted all of this. And now Germany is in economic collapse. And according to Rand, this is exactly what the United States needs, is a weakened Europe. And we've seen now the euro fall below the dollar this week. So the euro has now unbelievably...
So mission accomplished.
Yeah, exactly. And this was published in January, ahead of the invasion. So, I mean, to me, it's unbelievable. And it's being played out right now. You're seeing it as we head into the winter, right? This report from Reuters says Germans could overload their power grid as they're now switching to costly fan heaters as gas shortage fears bite. So they're saying Germans bought 600,000 electric heating devices during the first half of the year, up almost 35% from a year earlier, according to data by market researcher GfK. Households have been stocking up on electric fan heaters, including portable devices, sales figures show, amid fears that Russia could further limit gas supplies in the wake of the war in Ukraine. And you have to wonder, now that Germany has been officially sending weapons and Moscow is calling them to task for it, when are they going to flip the gas back on here?
Right. I mean, it's interesting, right? Because if we can presume that these powers that be actually read this report as it was who it was sent to, then to go on and act surprised that there be a conflict between Russia and Ukraine, which then trickles down into Germany, right? Just the other day, Caitlin Johnstone published a piece saying we really should stop using this word unprovoked conflict, right? Because these documents, among many other data points, show that the West knew this was coming, was provoking it, was maybe in fact hoping for it, right? So, but every newspaper falls in line and calls it this unprovoked, right?
Yeah.
It's unexcusable. And every time I see it, I'm like, are you reading history, right?
It's amazing. Maybe even pull up this other paragraph here on my laptop, Philip. The only feasible way to guarantee Germany's rejection of a Russian energy supplies is to involve both sides in the military conflict. They're basically saying that's the only way to get them involved. We've got to get Germany involved, and we've got to force their hand. That way they're sort of blackmailed, you know?
I just want to mention, too, that for 8 years, Putin warned us that we were intimidating him. We were provoking him for 8 years, and he's like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
So, in reference to what you're saying.
It's not even just sort of stimulating his ego or the idea of Western expansion, but also the fact that Zelensky in early 2021 did order drone strikes on Crimea, right? And so that is provocation by many accounts. I'm not saying, right, we take any one side, but we absolutely should not act like this came out of the blue. Like, whoa, where'd this come from? Why are they doing this? They're pure evil.
Yeah, and so, and of course, NATO was there the whole time. You know, again, this RAND document, it shows our involvement. It shows how RAND was involved in this. The crafting of, they were there actively involved in this. The CIA, the NSA, the United States government actively involved for 8 years in this. So wake up. You know, if there's anyone still sort of sitting on the fence to think that this was just like, wow, Russia just randomly decided to invade Ukraine. Like, really at this point? Please. Like,
well, and I know that Oliver Stone's documentary Ukraine on Fire is fairly old, but it's a really good documentary to watch for one reason alone, is how propaganda works and how they go into these areas and they create these organizations and they make these look like peace organizations. They print flyers, they get people involved like volunteers, and they make it look like humanitarian work when in reality it's propaganda moving toward a goal that they have, which is to provoke. So that's a really good documentary to go watch. And I believe he's making an updated version, but you should still check it out.
Here, can I just point out another piece of this? Because I can't get over this RAND document. It's so amazing. Putin may in turn decide to impose limited counter-sanctions, primarily on Russian energy supplies to Europe. Thus, the damage to EU countries will be quite comparable to the one the Russians, and in some countries, primarily in Germany, it will be higher. But listen to this. The prerequisite for Germany to fall into this trap is the leading role of the Green parties and ideology in Europe, meaning they are going to use the Green Party environmental movement against them in order to lead Germany into this trap.
Which is what happened, right, when Angela Merkel decided to shut down nuclear power, despite the fact that nuclear is, in fact, the safest energy, as long as you don't bomb them, the plants, right? That nuclear kills fewer people per unit of energy than any other power that we've got right now, and emits no carbon emissions.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So, but still took the fall for Angela Merkel's love of the environment, need to say that.
Let's give it up to the RAND Corporation. They've got
This was good strategizing.
They totally figured out how to screw over Europe.
Get someone to fall on their sword. This is how you do it.
I'm joking, of course. I'm not applauding this ridiculousness, but it's amazing to me that you literally have people in Washington, D.C. like, how can we destabilize Europe? Okay, let's provoke Russia. Let's also use the environmental movement against the Germans. We'll have them fall into the trap. That'll destabilize Germany. That'll help the United States. This is what they're thinking.
They didn't fall hard enough during the pandemic.
Right, that wasn't enough.
We did. So this is the jab, jab, punch, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, meanwhile, Germany, along with other European countries, are scrambling right now to figure out to help homes, industries, all of the surge in energy prices, almost as if this was planned, right? And so yesterday, Olaf Scholz said, we're going to treat this like the Berlin airlift. And we're going to, we're preparing Germans for the winter. It's going to be a cold winter. So Scholz is channeling the Berlin airlift to spirit and gird Germans for the winter, which is a really interesting analogy, right? Because so the Soviet Union blocks Western Germany after World War II, and then Allies for 1 year in 1948 airlift it was the largest humanitarian airlift in history. For 1 year, dropping all sorts of food and supplies and everything for 1 year. And that really, so the Soviets blocked West Berlin, cut off the Allies, and this is how he's drawing this connection. It's a really interesting way to basically say, you guys just need to pay more for energy. We'll get through this because we're stopping Mother Russia.
Okay.
What? Help me follow this logic. I mean, he thinks people are stupid. I think he thinks people are stupid. I don't know. But you have the protests breaking out, of course, over the past 24 hours in Berlin and in Leipzig as well. You have Con Murphy says Germany's 2 houses of parliament have passed emergency legislation to reactivate mothballed coal-fired power plants in order to support electricity. And then
coal, you guys, people do die from coal. In mass numbers, from respiratory diseases, from the actual mining of coal. We're shutting down nuclear in favor of coal, which does kill people. Okay.
Yeah. So there's that's your craziness. I mean, this is Germany on the brink. And then you have Chancellor Scholz coming out and saying, well, we've created the possibility for 2 nuclear power plants in southern Germany to keep running in the winter. What the hell does that mean?
The possibility.
Yeah, so we're going to give you some hopium here. We've created the possibility that we're going to turn on 2 power plants that we've turned off in the hopes. I mean,
do you think this is lost in translation? Was it originally in German?
Well, yeah. I mean, he spoke in German about it, but
maybe that's something that sounds a bit more declarative. In his native language. If
any Germans are watching right now, is that the accurate translation of what he said? I don't know. We've created the possibility for 2 nuclear power plants in southern Germany to keep running this winter. If we have any Germans watching right now, I'd love to know what you think about that. But then we have the protests. So now people are taking to the streets and they're saying enough is enough. This was in Leipzig and in Berlin. Thousands coming out against the cost of living hike and saying enough is enough. We can't pay for NATO's manufactured crisis. I love this sign. We can't pay for NATO's manufactured.
And furthermore, don't want to, right?
Right.
Meaning we're not on board with this ideologically.
But if you're wondering, so I love this tweet to wrap it up. Powell Wargan says, if you're wondering how Europe is doing, Germany is planning to open warm-up spaces that you can visit to avoid freezing at home this winter. So if you get frozen at home because you have no gas, you have no firewood, you can go to a warm-up zone and you'll be warmer.
You know what chaps my ass about this? Possibly quite literally as the winter comes, is that we just had a whole pandemic where we decided that we were shutting down society to protect old people, right? And old people are, the elderly and the immunocompromised are the ones who are more susceptible to deaths related to cold weather. So, haven't we as a society already shown that we do value these populations that are more vulnerable? So then, but we're going to let them freeze? Because how is it an elderly person who's alone going to get to a warm space?
Right.
This is not this is not a serious solution.
I mean, you're going to transport people? You're going to get them in a bus and take them to a warm zone?
And then what? Go home and sleep in the cold?
Yeah. What the hell is that? Go ahead, Philip.
I was going to say, maybe it sounds like maybe there were other motivations involved in the lockdowns, whereas, we're saving old people then, but we don't care about people that are most vulnerable now because it's almost like money was the real motivator for a lot of this.
Yeah,
think
I
that
had
stands
that
true.
thought too.
So someone
Cynical
Germans
of
in our chat are saying, yeah, the plan was to turn off those other 3 nuclear power plants. Now the plan is they might keep 2 of them on. So they're not even fully committing to keeping 2 of them on. Like what right now, like you see people taking to the street, like you are watching Germany collapse. You are watching a desperate Germany right now. And there's of course concern about what happens with a desperate Germany. I mean, we've seen this before. What happens when you have a Germany that's, well, we don't have to go there.
Well, let's not extrapolate.
I mean, other journalists
there,
are. I mean,
but-
because when Germany is spending billions to build up its military, when they're now they vow this is something they never do, which is to send weapons to other countries. Now they're actively doing that in Ukraine, training forces to attack Russia. Like things have changed in Germany. And so when you had a country that was arguably moving towards, how many more nuclear power plants were going to be coming online of the new variety, and now you've shut all of them down. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I would love to hear from our German viewers what you guys think of this, what you think is happening right now to your country. Let us know in the chat below.